You're listening to the Monocle Daily, first broadcast on the 27th of June 2025 on Monocle Radio.
France won't move again when it comes to pensions, but French news presenters just can't stay still. And who's up for a tuk-tuk? Why do tourists insist on making bad transport choices? I'm Emma Nelson, and the Monocle Daily, live from Paris, starts now. Hello and a very warm welcome to the Monocle Daily, coming to you from Studio 5 here at 16 Rue Bachemont in Paris. I'm Emma Nelson for our final turn around the microphone. My guests Alexandre Kouchnel, Daphne Denis and Marie-Pierre Lonelong will discuss the day's biggest stories, including, is AI making us all stupid? Stay tuned, that's all coming up on the Monocle Daily. So the warmest of welcomes on a very warm day in a very warm Studio 5 to Alexandre Kouchnel, Daphne Denis and Marie-Pierre Lonelong. Thank you so much for coming to sort of send off the Monocle Happy Bus, which has been in town for the last 5 days. We've seen all of you around the microphone once, twice. Thank you so much for letting us host you. How's it been?
It's been lovely, Emma, as always.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
Yes.
How about you, Marie-Pierre?
Yes, it was nice to come back after 1 year.
We'll try and make it a bit less last time. And welcome, Alexandre.
My pleasure to be here.
Good. Right. Okay. Let us dive straight in so we can just polish off French Week in style. French literature is sort of full of powerful pieces which depict impossible situations. I'm thinking of Jean-Paul Sartre's Huis Clos, No Exit, telling the tales of three people trapped for eternity in a room. I'm also thinking of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, two tramps, again contemplating eternity while they wait for a figure who never comes. We could, I'd say, possibly write a third work about France's efforts to reform its pension scheme. We are sitting in a room waiting for something to happen. The French Prime Minister has delayed any decision to change some terms of the country's retirement plans. It will be reconsidered in the autumn, kicking the can down the road. Alex, what's gone wrong?
Oh, we can go back to 1974 if you wish, but I think the great title for the work you basically sort of hoped up would be French Prime Minister delays any decision. So that's where we are. We haven't reformed the pension system for years. Back in 2023, there was an attempt at a reform, basically pushing the age from 62 years old to 64-year-old if you want to retire with a full pension. This project caused an uproar in French politics and in French streets, of course. It was passed but was never voted thanks to a tricky part of our constitution. And basically, this is one of the things that cost our former prime minister his job. So our current prime minister, who has no majority and who really doesn't really have a clear idea about what to do, is now trying to gain time by asking the social partners to come up with some sort of a plan. But they don't have one because they don't agree on pretty much anything. They've agreed on one thing. They will not go back to 62 years old. In fact, they agreed at first on 67 years old with a full pension. Now, thanks to 4 months of very long effort, they're going to 66 and a half years. That's basically what's happening. The reality behind that is that our Prime Minister, François Bayrou, is just sort of trying to gain some time, thinking he could be revoked on this issue. He will not, because the far right has already said they would not vote or strike down the confidence of the government over this issue.
And here we go. We have another vote of no confidence that's imminent against the Prime Minister.
I'm not an expert on the pension thing, but what we see is the situation of politics in France 1 year after the general election that President Macron called, and it not on the right schedule, and actually it leaves the country without a majority. And actually in France, the Fifth Republic we live in needs majority actually, and then you are in this time, very hard time, with wars everywhere, with climate issue everywhere, and in France, and you have this old male politician. He is in the political life for years and years and years. He is the mayor of a little city in the south of France. And I think most of the energy that he gives to the country is he wants to stay in his job, actually, like he used to be when he used to be education minister. And 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
About 15 years ago, and he stayed at his job for roughly a year.
Yeah, but that's the only thing he wants to stay at the job. And he's so old-fashioned. And I must say that it's a shame, especially in this time. Can you imagine what a man like that, how can he cope to the situation we live in?
Alex, I have to ask this about the fight for longevity within French politics. That's not a new thing, is it at all?
Well, not really. I think power is a sort of a self-sustaining drug. The problem is not them staying in power. The problem is never finding the actual solutions to the problems we know we already have. And there's a very hard and stark reality behind our pension system. It's that it's based on a contribution system, right? So if you work, some of your salary, additional money to your salary goes to a public fund, which goes to the pensioners. This system, when it was put in place, we had roughly on average 4 workers per pensioners. So, it would work, 4 people would work, and they would pay for the pension of 1 person. Now, at this day, it's 1.6.
I wonder, there is that I can't remember which French politician a few years ago talked about France being, God created France and made heaven and then filled it with people who believed that they were in hell. And the fact is that there is so many other governments have had the difficult task of inflicting later pensions on their citizens, and somehow everybody else has managed to do this. So who wants to explain to us what it is about the French that just can't budge?
I can give an attempt. I think the age situation is a big contentious point right now because, as I mentioned earlier this week, not everyone starts working at the same time in France, but the idea is that they all should finish at 64 at the moment. And that's an issue because it's considered unfair. If you started working at 16, it's not the same as if you started working at 25. And I think the government pretends not to understand, but it is a very obvious issue. So it's what we call retraite à point, which would allow you to contribute for how many years you've actually been working versus a certain longevity. That would perhaps be a way forward.
What are your thoughts on Marie-Pierre, on this issue about the workability of it and what a way forward could be?
What we see is that probably we should work later. But what we see in all the companies, that after 50 or 55, you are a senior and you are fired. And if you can find a job after 55 and then work until 64 or 5 or 7 or 6, you are very lucky, because after 55 here in France, it's very hard to have a job, and it's very hard to maintain, unless you are a prime minister or a minister.
They never seem to have to retire, do they?
No, they will never. But you know what I mean? I know what it is. I am a senior. I'm 55, and I know that the day I will not be in my job anymore, it will be very hard for me to find a new job and then to work until these famous 64, 65, 66, 67. Can you imagine having a job in France at 67? Not a lot of people. Not a lot.
You need to move to London. 55 is a baby, an absolute baby. My goodness. Let's move on to, we've just spoken about a sort of a profound immobility in the world of politics, but it seems that in French television, no one can sit still. I don't know whether they've just heated up all the presentation chairs, but the France television presentation rota seems to have gone absolutely bananas. Now, we'll examine whether anyone actually gives 2 hoots about this in a minute, but can someone just, for those of us who are not glued to our light entertainment and news and breakfast screens every single day in France, what's happening? Who wants to have a go at it? Marie-Pierre?
What is funny that we talked about that before, and Alexandre said, who cares about this, mercato? Yes, you're right. It's a real B2B information in a way, just interesting journalists, but not exactly, according to me, because it's not about what's going on with Léa Salamé and 20h.
So who are these people?
It's about people who work on a radio, France Inter, which is the very first radio in France. A lot of people, they listen to those two people, Léa Salamé, this woman, and this guy, Nicolas Demorand, for 8 years. And this spring, something which was for me very interesting, he wrote a book to say that he suffered from a mental illness, and at 7:30 he was, on air, and he said, "I'm sick. I suffer from a mental illness," and it was incredible. And for me, especially in this post-Me Too area, where the fact to speak, to tell what you live is so important, it was like, not an earthquake, it's stupid what I say, but for me, it was impressive. And those two, Léa Salamé and Nicolas Demorand, apparently, they helped each other. And he was able to come every morning thanks to her, because she helped him. And also, what was so impressive for me is that at one point, it's news, and news are very hard at this time, and you were listening to people talking about their intimity, and that was so strange, this mix of things.
I think to help the audience understand, because
it's
living in Paris, it all makes sense. But here's what happened. The lead anchor woman for the 8 p.m. news...
8 a.m.
8 p.m.
Well,
20h,
sorry.
on TV. So the main, how could you say, the main rendezvous in news... Anne-Sophie Lapix has been presenting the 8 o'clock news for 8 years. So she's a figure in French TV. She's well known by everyone. And she actually just hosted her last show yesterday. She will be replaced in September by Léa Salamé, who used to actually anchor the lead radio program in France.
It's
and
a bit complicated, yes.
And that is a bit of news, I guess, for those who are really glued to their TV at 8 p.m., which is still a quite large amount of people in France. It still is the daily news.
And probably not in Paris, not in our, group of people here in the media.
So but it is a big deal, because Anne-Sophie Lapix is famously a really tough interviewer. Anne-Sophie Lapix is a very good journalist, also hated by many people, but by Elon Musk specifically, and by Emmanuel Macron, who's refused to be interviewed by her recently. And so the reason why her shift is ending, many of us suspect, is because of the fact that the president of France doesn't want to talk to her, which is a big problem when you present the 8 o'clock news. And so now she is being replaced by Léa Salamé, who is famously, yes, the presenter of the morning show on the radio, the most listened to morning show, but she's also a presenter of infotainment news now, of something that's, veering towards entertainment more and more, and that she's really enjoying. She did loads of, she presented a show about the Olympics, she presents shows about culture that are kind of talk shows that lack a little bit of substance, and honestly, she's become less and less incisive when she works. And so the fact that we are replacing the bulldog by a Labrador is quite strange. And the other thing that's interesting, I think, for French people is that Léa Salamé's partner is a politician. And so what happens when he runs, because he's probably going to run for the presidential election, what happens if he runs? Who's she going to interview? Is she going to sit it out? What's going to happen? There's loads of questions that come around this personality, because she is both showing how the public service is sacrificing a little bit journalism towards entertainment, and also what we ask, the ethics that we ask of journalists. I'm not questioning whether she is herself, ethically good or not. But the image that it gives is that her partner is a politician who's still acting as a politician, and her being the main presenter gives her an image of bias.
What you do, I mean, all this thing is the symbol of a big mix of things, and this is so French. You know, this is private and true. Public. This is entertainment and news, politics and news. You know what I mean?
I say it's standing next to us in the studio. I mean, Alex, you do have to sort of pipe up a little bit, because people are sort of talking a little bit about you here. Well, not you in particular, but the structure.
Well, let's. I have to be honest with your viewers. My mom used to host the very same show Anne-Sophie Lapix is leaving, and my dad has made a career in French politics all the way up to being the foreign secretary. So
I apologise for bringing it up, but it is the major elephant in the room that had to be dealt with.
It's the first time I've been called an elephant. Thank you. So I wouldn't be, the properly placed to say that there should be a very strict barrier between politicians and journalists. But it's true that it does raise some questions. It's true that you do not ask the same questions when you're personally involved. It seems that Léa Salamé has already said that should Raphaël Glucksmann, her partner, run for president, she would not cover politics, which I think could work in a way. But what you said about infotainment and information is very true. She sort of caused a bit of attention in the profession about a couple of months back, because she was interviewed and she said, when I interview somebody at 8 a.m. and she does the lead interview, which again is for the biggest radio program, she said, I'm not looking for the truth, I'm looking for a moment, which I guess does, make good ratings. But it's true that when you present the lead news program, the truth is something you might want to go after.
Okay.
She's not an Anne-Sophie Lapix, is what.
Excellent. We can see that Daphne will be campaigning to bring her back as soon as we possibly can. 100%. Well, look, it doesn't really matter, because very soon everything that we're doing here is going to be done by AI. ChatGPT, super helpful. It answers questions. It can write a letter. It can write a speech. It could even write this script and probably do a finer job than this particular human. But is it actually helping us? There are researchers attempting to assess the brain activity while you write an essay with AI and while you write an essay without AI. And the super big question that's being asked is, are we all getting more stupid? Or should I say, are we all becoming more stupid? Because I'm trying to outwit ChatGPT. Daphne, are we stupid?
Are we stupid? That is a big question, Emma. I'm definitely probably a bit stupid. I don't think we're stupid yet, but I think we are at risk of losing a lot of mental capacity if we rely too heavily on instruments like this. And I do think that big tech and the globalization of not only AI, but Netflix, Spotify, all of that is homogenizing the way that we think about things. We're getting used to watch films that only happen a certain way. We're getting used to listening to one kind of music. We're getting used to reading books that are putting words together in the same way. And that's what AI is doing. AI has one voice. AI, I don't know if you use ChatGPT, apparently not.
I don't even have an account.
Well done, Emma.
Who here has a ChatGPT account?
I have it. I have a
ChatGPT
account.
How about you, Alex?
I have a professional one.
Yeah,
as opposed to an unprofessional one.
You don't use it much, is what you mean.
I don't use it much. I highly distrust the technology, but that's because I'm French and we highly distrust technology overall. And
Marie-Pierre, you as a magazine editor are going to, I
never used ChatGPT.
We are innocents in a world of enlightened. We do realise it.
Should we be ashamed of that?
I don't know. I'm too stupid to know. Actually, no, I'm not stupid enough yet because I'm not using it.
No, I think AI can be helpful, can be a tool. I really believe that. But I think you have to use it as a tool. And the problem is growing up in a world where people will turn to it before they think. And I think that's exactly what this study, which is one study by MIT, which has its flaws, it's a very small pool of people, etc. But what it shows is that you don't even try to think before asking ChatGPT something. And also ChatGPT doesn't have the answers. It's just crowdsourcing an answer in a very authoritative voice that sounds exactly the same. And so the way that you're going to the way that we're going to write, that we're going to find our voice, I think is going to evolve. And I see it even in journalists that I'm working with right now. Young journalists are losing that. And I think it's really, really scary, and that we need to do something about that.
It feels like the next step along. I remember when everybody started to say we must not trust social media because it is an unreliable source. Having, we've all come from backgrounds where, 2 separate sources to verify a story before you can broadcast it or publish it. There are rules, regulations, principles, values, whatever you want to call it. And now what we've had is that idea that social media is actually even more reliable than just pushing it through ChatGPT, because you cannot test the reliability of what is coming through. Wild stuff comes out.
There's more to it than that. It's not just the way we relate to truth and fact. It's what's mind-blowing is that it's altering the way our very brain functions. So we just referred to this MIT pre-published review, which you said is just based on 54 people, so we don't know. But there's a further studies that dates back to before the era of ChatGPT and generative AI. It's based on OECD rankings, right? And basically, it was published by the FT a couple of months back. It said that we probably peaked brain activity around 2010, 2012. And that since then, and I kid you not, we have more struggles to concentrate. Our verbal and numerical reasoning has declined. So it's not ChatGPT that is overall making us, more and more stupid. It's our ability to actually process information, because we used to be able to dedicate time and resource to finding one answer. And we basically switched from a self-directed behavior to the passive consumption and to the constant context switching, basically pop-ups in our minds. And whether or not we're becoming more stupid, I wouldn't dare to say. I'm a teacher as well as a journalist, and I can tell you that for some of my students, reading a full book is too much.
I struggle with that now. It's terrible. Let's go full stupid then. Good news for anyone who likes a ride home in a furry carriage with a Macarena playing and the prospect of paying €20 every 5 minutes for the privilege. Well, you'll be able to enjoy making a spectacle of yourself for the foreseeable future, in London at least, because the city's transport authority has ruled that the nighttime rickshaws must be regulated. Good news, but has refused to consider an all-out ban. Hands up, we can be discreet before we say anything out loud. Who's been on one of those ferry rickshaws?
I have not.
Neither have I.
No.
3rd of August 2023, Nice waterfront. I was in one, but I was surrounded by 4 children, so I plead my case.
I've been on a Coco taxi in Cuba, but I think that was cool.
What's a taxi?
It's not really, it's like a motorcycle, so it's not a rickshaw, but it looks like a coconut around it, and then you sit in the coconut. It's really cool.
I'm up for that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I don't regret it, and that was fun, but I don't think I want to go into it.
It was a moment where actually sort of shame sort of rose on my face. It was, but then again, I was with 4 10-year-olds, so it was fine.
And we have a lot of those rickshaws here in Paris.
Yeah, we do. They're mostly used by tourists, and they do have loud music and probably very faulty brakes.
But in very touristic places,
yes.
No? Like around La Tour Eiffel or...
Yes.
So what happens to the tourist brain that makes a reasonably clear-headed individual like me climb aboard a ferry rickshaw? It makes Daphne climb into a giant coconut, ladies and gentlemen, and think, yep, this is a thing. What happens to us when we go on holiday?
I don't know. That's the only time I've done it. And it was really because it was simple.
I don't think you stand on trial there, to be honest.
No, it's fine.
At one moment or another, where everyone is susceptible to a very bad tourist choice.
Okay.
I wasn't a tourist then.
What are we all? You weren't a tourist. Actually, you did that sort of like as a full civilian and went.
Working.
Well, that's bananas, or it's not. It's coconuts. The silly things that we all do when we're on holiday. Or what tourists do when they're on holiday. Quite a lot of bad footwear I've spotted in Paris at the moment. There's some pretty bad... And people trying to dress like they're Parisians and suffering so badly.
Berries. Don't wear a beret if you're in Paris. Just stop it. Stop it right now.
Really? No berries in Paris?
Don't do the beret.
Anything else? What else do we need to stop doing if we want to be friends?
Stop doing the... I don't know how you call it again. You know, that thing with 2 wheels... You're standing on top of it.
Yeah.
That's a tourist thing. Yeah, a Segway.
What, a Segway?
I think they're called segways.
I think they're called segways.
I'd love to see a Segway try and navigate a Parisian.
There's so many tourists on segways.
Okay. Anything else? What do we need to get rid of?
No.
If we're going to, what about you, Marie-Pierre?
Try to walk and go in the streets far from the touristic areas.
Fine. But don't take the Segway and don't wear a beret.
No, of course.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it.
I mean, do it if you like. Do it if you like, but we'll judge you. Just know that we'll judge you.
Wouldn't life be simpler if that's everything that mattered? You know, if the only piece of news we had to cover and the only piece of legislation that the British had to go through was should we regulate rickshaws or no? Can we go back to that time? You know, when we make politics boring again.
Was that time ever?
We just have Alexandre Kouchner. We've gone to something sort of like we've just gone back to into the pursuit of past times there. What a philosophical way to say thank you so much to Alexandre Kouchner, Daphne Denis and Marie-Pierre Lonalong. Now, founded in 2003, Keen has evolved from an upstart outdoor footwear brand into a global leader in sustainable footwear. For Men's Fashion Week in Paris, they've been showcasing their Spring-Summer 2026 showroom at Galerie Joseph. Jeroen Meyer from Keen joined me in the Studio 5, a little earlier, to tell me more about the growth of his brand.
Yeah, so we are indeed an American outdoor footwear brand, founded in 2003. So we are 22 years young, we're kind of saying it. Our heritage is core outdoor, but yeah, we are privately owned, so have an owner who is still quite involved in everything he's doing, and we are also trying then to step into new categories, and currently we see quite some good momentum into the lifestyle space. Our icon is kind of a bulky outdoor sandor with toe protection, so that's kind of our icon. It's having that bumper in front of it, which protecting your toes on the trails or everything outside. I'm currently wearing also our unique. That's the lifestyle icon. That's the shoe with 2 cords and a sole. So it's just that, and it's floated in each other.
You are therefore one of the great examples of when you take functional outdoor trail footwear and then you make it perfectly workable and acceptable on a city street in Paris.
Yes, it's really functional. It has performance for the outdoors, and that will also get you kind of comfortable on the streets.
Wonderful. Okay, so what brings you to Paris?
We have our first global showroom here in Paris for Paris Fashion Week. So we are here with the global team to show ourselves in a new kind of environment, because we see indeed that outdoor and lifestyle are really blurring together. So for us, a good opportunity to show us to current and new partners.
And who is your clientele? Who's your market in Paris?
Our market it's funny because it's on both sides. It's 50% outdoor, it's 50% lifestyle. So we are really on both sides of the space.
And where are you hoping to get your footwear placed within the sort of the Paris fashion scene?
We had good meetings with Merci, which is kind of an icon retailer here. We are at Le Bon Marché, some other department stores in Paris. We are here mainly to talk with these more lifestyle-driven retailers.
So explain to me a little bit more about the fact that the manufacturing process that goes behind your footwear. You are a very, very small team, aren't you?
Yeah, we are a global brand with HQ in Portland. I think there were maybe 400 or 500 people working on a global level. But in Europe, in the EMEA region, we have 40 people.
And that does feel like a very small number, doesn't it? But pushing out a lot of very good shoes.
Yeah. We the good thing is from working at Keen is that you almost know everyone, so it feels really like a family, and that maybe also helps us to get efficient to market.
Tell us a little bit more about the collaborations that Keen is now engaged in.
We're really working with collaborations more in the lifestyle space, which can give our products new DNA. So working with Hendrik Vipskov, fashion designer out of Denmark, well known for his popped colors. So he's making our products are a little bit more poppy, adding new colors, which we never will do ourselves.
Why not?
Yeah, sometimes you have more freedom if you're working with an external kind of party. You have a little bit more freedom on what you would like to do.
Now, the most recognizable model of your footwear celebrates its 11th birthday at the moment. Tell us a little bit more about that and what your hopes are for it.
Yeah, we are celebrating kind of the 11th anniversary of our unique. That's the product with the 2 cords and the sole, which is floating around out of your feet. And what we were trying to do, what we would like to do, is that product gets more and more visibility in on the streets because it has that outdoor function and that which gives you that comfort on the street. So everyone who's entering kind of the product with their feet is really surprised about the comfort and appreciating that also in daily life.
And plans for next year?
We have some collaborations, what I said, with Hendrik Vipskov. We have energy packs, which are all having colors around nature. So the nature colors like green, brown are all introduced into the product. We have some dark sky colors, so they are more black elevated materials in there. And in each kind of activate or in each initiative which we're having for next year, the unique is kind of part of it because that's our icon of the brand.
Haroon Meyer there from Keen talking to me earlier on today. And that's all we have time for today's edition of the Monocle Daily. The warmest of thanks to my panellists, Alexandra Kouchner, Daphne Denis and Marie-Pierre Lonalong. And indeed, thanks to all of our guests from the last 5 days who's helped us keep the ship sailing hard and fast across the seas of Paris. This is our last day of French Week. The warmest of thanks to our producer, Tom Webb, who's done all the shows, and our sound engineer back in London, Lily Austin. For now, from me, Emma Nelson, goodbye. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.